Welcome back to Let's Talk Careers. My name is Miss V, and I'm so excited to bring another incredible guest. Today, we are zooming around the world where we meet with Kate Thubron, the founder of Mindful Care Training and Consultancy. Welcome, Kate.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Super excited to have you here with me. Kate, I have so many questions, and I know that young people interested in the care industry and the healthcare industry are going to be really curious about the experiences that you've had. But before we do that, I thought we could go back to when you were a teenager, thinking about your A-levels and thinking about how those A-levels might evolve into your future career.
I had always known that I wanted to go into healthcare, but I wasn't sure what area of healthcare that I wanted to go into. And the reason why I wanted to get into healthcare is because when I was younger, I was part of the St John Ambulance, which is what we've got here in the UK. So I was doing that an awful lot, and so that kind of sparked my interest. But I think it's incredibly difficult for young people, and there's a lot of pressure on young people as well to make those decisions. And I've got friends and colleagues that actually then had to go back to college and do different A-levels because later on they then realised that they needed maths or they needed a science to then go and, go into the career that they really wanted.
What A-levels did you choose and how did you make those choices?
So my A-levels were biology, sociology, psychology and drama. So the reason that I chose biology was because I've always been interested in biology, human biology especially. And sociology and psychology, I kind of thought, well, they'll kind of give me a good, even if I don't know what area of healthcare I want to go into, that's going to really help me in the future anyway, and hopefully open some doorways. But with drama, it was really just an interest, always like drama and dance. And so, yeah, it was just something that I really enjoyed doing. And I carried that on through to AS, and then biology, sociology and psychology was for A-levels, so A2s.
And when you were making those choices, did you feel at a gut instinct that it was the right choice for you, or were you encouraged and influenced to make those choices?
I think I found it difficult to choose what I wanted to study because you never knew kind of what you really would need in the future. But I think because I had a good interest in those three areas and drama as well, but as I had interest in those, that's where I want to pursue. And I kind of thought, well, if I enjoy it and I've got an interest in it, then hopefully that will make it, I'll succeed a little bit more doing those A-levels. And, if I found a job or something later on down the line that needed something different, then maybe I'd have to relook at, doing different qualifications.
So tell us what you trained to do when you were at university. What was it? What was the area that you finally decided this is going to be it for me, and I feel like it's the right place for me to start my career?
So I trained as an occupational therapist, but it was actually I was going to university open days in kind of the first year when I was doing my A-levels, and I was looking at nursing, I was looking at physiotherapy, and occupational therapy, and I didn't really know which one to go down, but I chose OT in the end because I felt it was a lot more varied for me, and you could work with so many different people with so many different skills. And then once I went to these university open days and I was still a bit undecided, I went to go and get some experience in one of the local hospitals with the OTs there, and then that's what really kind of swayed it. They go, yes, this is for me.
So for a young person that's not familiar with occupational therapy, can you kind of give us a little brief on what it entails and what kind of support you offer people?
Yeah, so occupational therapy is really varied, and we help people of all ages and all abilities with kind of any difficulties that they may have carrying out their everyday tasks. So we call these occupations. So things that are meaningful for that person. And so we'll work with them whether they've got a disability, maybe they've had an illness or a trauma, or maybe as they're getting older, they're finding a little bit more difficult to do things. Is that we'll identify what's important for that person and work with them to try and maintain their independence. So it could be from getting up from a chair to washing and dressing to going to the shops, seeing friends. So it is so varied. And the one thing I really love about occupational therapy is the skills that you learn are so transferable. And so it's not just hospitals that you can work in, it's just not the community you can work in. You can work, everywhere pretty much with an OT degree. And that's what really excited me about going to do an OT degree and be an occupational therapist.
So if you had to go back then, if you had to go back to making those A-level choices, knowing that this would be your today working in OT, would you have made those same choices? And I ask you that, Kate, not because I'm looking at you to do a do-over, but because there might be a young person right now having to make those choices. So if you had to go back and remake those A-level choices or choose those high school subjects, what would you choose differently, or would you choose the same?
I would choose the same, but when I first qualified as an OT, I was working in an area that I gained a lot of experience from, but it wasn't really the area that I was particularly interested in. But it was just where I was at that particular time. That's where I was working, and I thought, is this really for me? And I did question it at the time: is OT the career for me at that particular point? And so I looked at going to do like mental health nursing or still in the healthcare area. But then when I was looking at universities, they wanted maths. And I'm not very good at maths at all. And I thought I can't go back and do that. I mean, lucky, I was then able to choose a different pathway in occupational therapy and more doors opened up. And that's where I've gone and got different qualifications and different courses to help me open up those doorways. But I think I'd still pick them. But I can easily see how younger people can actually pick something that then they need something completely different when they are looking at studying something.
And now that you're in the industry, as you start to look at the future of OT, how is it evolving, and in what ways should young people be aware of those changes?
So I think the way that OT is evolving is that we're becoming a lot more aware of what occupational therapy is now and the benefits of it. And there's so many doorways with occupational therapy. It is not like there's not just working in a hospital. Like I went from working in the NHS, I've worked abroad, and I've also then worked with my occupational therapy skills and experience. I then went to go and work as Dementia Lead, more kind of managerial in a large care home company. So I think when you're at university studying occupational therapy, they'll say there's hospital routes, there's community routes, but there's so many transferable skills. And just because you don't go into an occupational therapy role, as an occupational therapist, your occupational therapy degree can really help you with other areas, really, like managerial or coaching or going into schools or setting up your own business or doing training or anything like that. So it's so varied. And yeah.
I love that. And now you've taken us right to where we want to be going, as to your current role. Kate, where on the journey did you decide that you would leave the role that you were doing as an occupational therapist, working in the care homes for the NHS, to then decide, you know what, I'm going to be an entrepreneur? If you could take us through your daily, how do you set your day up, and where does being an occupational therapist fit into the equation?
So my days are really varied. So at the minute, I'm working with companies to help write their training. I'm going out to care homes to deliver training, but I'm also writing like marketing pieces for the companies around dementia care and around mindfulness and meditation. So normally, I've got little ones at home as well, so it kind of really depends on what they're doing. But when they're at nursery, it's literally getting out, checking emails, and it could be in the morning going on some Zoom calls, to then in the afternoon doing some online training, and then the next day it might be me getting in the car and driving to a care home an hour down the road and setting up to do some training there, and then it might be at lunchtime looking at going to a care home and reviewing kind of their meal times for people living with dementia and writing a plan together of how they can improve it. And then it might be coming back and doing painting and bits and pieces for my little ones. So it's really varied. It's great to be able to have that flexibility.
Would you recommend an aspiring occupational therapist to go straight into being an entrepreneur, or would you suggest a different pathway first?
I would suggest to go and get the experience. And then I think, especially with occupational therapy, because it is so varied, you might think that actually, I mean, I was lucky that I've always kind of gone down this road and it's always interested me, and I've got to, work with people living with dementia. But you might go into something thinking, actually, that's really interests me. But until you know and you go and get that experience, then something might really surprise you. So I would definitely, as a basic grade occupational therapy, go and get the experience, whether that's rotational posts in hospitals, and then kind of work your way up to maybe a band 6. And then from there, look at actually what are your interests, but also looking at emerging roles as well. So like I think you don't have to apply for jobs that are just occupational therapy. It could be, managerial roles or coaching roles or anything like that. So it doesn't have to have the title occupational therapy, because your skills are so transferable that actually you could go anywhere with this, and you can go anywhere around the world as well.
Now, let's zoom into mindful care training and consultancy. Tell us what the mission is and how it connected you and I together.
So mindful care training and consultancy is the ethos of it is trying to improve the care and well-being for people living with dementia in care homes. So we have that side of the business, but the other side of the business is around mindfulness, and it's about mental health and about looking after staff that look after people living with dementia, and along with staff, thinking about care partners as well. So the people that are at home looking after their loved ones, what support is there for them? So it is around the bigger picture of everybody that is looking after people living with dementia, from self-care to well-being to activities to all the self-care of the person that's caring for that person. So we got in contact because I'd seen yourselves on LinkedIn, and made that connection, and just wanted to speak to yourselves about occupational therapy and about actually how varied the role is. And I would really recommend people looking, into this role.
That's amazing. And I think living out in the United Arab Emirates, having also never really, I mean, I've heard of dementia through people of people, but I think it's one of those areas of a person's health that is only really spoken about when it's touched you personally, which is probably common amongst every other illness. That, when you're personally touched by it, it obviously becomes more of an awareness in your circle. What are some of the stereotypes that you know of as an occupational therapist and now working as an entrepreneur as well about dementia and caring for people who care for people who have dementia?
Okay, so one of the biggest things, which is what I'm trying to help kind of get rid of the stigma, is that people living with dementia, or they're now living with, they're suffering with dementia. They can't do what they used to do. And actually, as an occupational therapist, it's saying, no, just because they're living with dementia, people live with cancer, people live with diabetes, people live with other conditions. Well, what's the difference here? Let's actually work with the person living dementia and their care partners, and support them to maintain as much independence as possible. So that's kind of the ethos of it, really.
Kate, if there's a young person right now watching this thinking, I want to get more involved, I want to learn more, they might be thinking about how to gain experiences of work, what would some of your suggestions be for that young person?
So I would personally go and contact your local hospital or community services. There's occupational therapists working in schools as well. And go and get as much experience as you can. Not only will that give you some understanding of the different roles, like I said, it's so varied, but also when you apply for university as well, you're going to be able to speak about those experiences and draw upon those experiences. And it will make sure that you're aware of what an OT is, and that you're really wanting to go down that route too. So I think that's the first one. And also I think when you qualify, I would say when you qualify, just be open-minded. I said myself, I went into an area that wasn't really me, but I knew that I could get as much experience as possible from this, from this area of work. And it's kind of led me to help me to where I am today.
So Kate, as we're coming to an end, I know there's going to be one question that will be the popular question is, how can we find Kate? Where can people look to find you if they wanted to reach out for some support or even gain some more insights into a career in OT?
So there's two ways at the minute. So the first one is to go onto LinkedIn and my LinkedIn page and contact me through that. But I'm also on Facebook as well under Mindful Care Training and Consultancy. So and you can message me through that as well. But on the Facebook page and Instagram and LinkedIn, I do post courses that are coming up that are online courses as well. So it's all around the world that people can tap into.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Kate, for being here. Really appreciate your time. And that brings us right to the end. Thank you, everybody, for watching. My name is Miss V. You're watching Let's Talk Careers. And today we spoke with Kate Thubron, who is the founder of Mindful Care Training and Consultancy. We will see you all at our next Let's Talk Careers with Miss V.